Hello, Retroburn here, part 11 of our Let's Play Battletech. And in the last episode we talked to Darius in the command center. So I'm going to divide this into several sections. Each one is going to be a conversation with the rest of the NPCs Yang and Sumir. After that we're going to go through all these one by one before we launch into our next mission. So viewers who don't like this phase of the game where you manage resources and take care of finances and such, can just skip these and move to view the other episodes of our Let's Play. So anyway, we're going to go to the Mech Bay and talk to Yang.
Need something?
Hey boss, welcome to the Mech Bay. My own little piece of heaven right here on the ship. Something I can help you with? Peppered. Got a few questions about the Mech Bay. So let's take care of the important things first. I've got a few questions about the Mech Bay. Yeah? Then hit me with them. I'll do what I can to answer. I mean, I don't want to wax poetic or nothing, but the Mech Bay is where the magic happens, boss. It's the beating heart of a mercenary outfit. Okay, so these are all tutorials, so let's go through all of them, one by one. Anything I should know about the Mech Bay themselves? Anything I should know about the Mech Bays themselves? Beyond each cubicle holding one battle mech? Not much. It's all about capacity. The more mech bays we have, the more mechs we can keep battle ready. And the more mechs we have battle ready, the more flexibility you have in your deployment options. A few reasons. First, we have limited capacity in the Mech Bay, so we need to store the overstock for eventual sale or for use in the future. Second, we don't pay upkeep costs on mech storage. That's a business thing though, not my department, so this is one thing to keep in mind. Third, and this is important, whenever we pick up partial mech salvage from the battlefield, I put it in storage for you. If you gather or buy enough partial mech salvage to complete a battle mech chassis, my team will assemble it right away. You let me know if you want to keep it in storage or have it readied for combat. Battle mechs are expensive as hell, so assembling one out of salvage is our best bet for expanding our roster. What happens when a mech goes into or gets readied from storage? When you send a mech chassis into storage, our mech stacks dismount all its weapons and equipment and place them in your inventory for use on other chassis. The chassis can stay in storage indefinitely. And don't worry about storage capacity, boss. I'll make it fit, don't you worry. So it's unlimited, huh? Let me ask you about something else. Wait, now getting a stored battle mech ready for a combat drop is a different animal. My techs will need a couple of days to bring an empty chassis up from storage. Once the chassis is back in the Mech Bay, you'll need to select its loadout from our equipment inventory so you can start a refit. The time and cost of a refit is dependent on the type and amount of equipment you choose. Let me ask you about something else. I've been wondering about the components you can put on our mechs. One of my favorite topics, in the Mech Bay, you can browse all the equipment we have available in your inventory. There are two types of components I can install on a battle mech, weapons and equipment. Tell me about ballistic weapons. Ballistic weapons such as the autocannon pack a good punch, generate little heat, and can destabilize an enemy if they hit it enough. But ballistic weapons are, you know, ballistic, so they require ammo, and ammo can explode if it takes a hit in combat, which is bad news all around. Ballistic weapons are also pretty heavy and can take up a lot of space in a mech. Strengths and weaknesses, boss. Strengths and weaknesses. Tell me about energy weapons. Energy weapons don't use any ammo, but they generate a lot of heat. You may need to invest in additional heat sinks. Keep your mech cool if you choose an energy You may need to invest in additional heat sinks. This is missing a word to keep your mech cool if you choose an energy-heavy loadout. Tell me about missile weapons. Missile weapons are my favorites. Yeah, they require ammo and generate moderate heat, but the pounding they deliver can destabilize an enemy faster than most other weapons. And having multiple projectiles in a shot means you're almost always guaranteed at least a single hit. Long-range missiles are also capable of indirect fire. If one of your units has line of sight on an enemy, it can act as a spotter for LRM equipments that don't, With a spotter, a mech equipped with LRMs can stay behind cover and arc its missiles to hit the enemy. A spotter can increase your launcher's effective range too. Granted, the enemy can do the same to you, but that's someone else's problem. Also, one thing I've read from the forums is that long-range missiles compared to the all-or-nothing weapons like the lasers and the PPC, they work in tandem. So first you shoot it with your all-or-nothing weapons like the PPC and the what do you call this, the autocannons, and then once you whittle down the armor of the enemy, you can pound them with the missiles so that each shot will have a separate chance of hitting the internals, so that will maximize you chipping away at their internal structure. Tell me about support weapons. Support weapons are lighter than the others. Small lasers, machine guns, that kind of thing. I programmed our targeting computers to automatically fire them after a melee attack if they're activated. Tell me about the other types of kit you can refit on a mech. It's a big list, boss. I suggest you check the store in every system you travel to. You never know what you'll find. I can install stronger cockpits to reduce... Ooh, cool. To reduce the injuries our mech warriors will take. Arm actuators that increase melee damage. Range finders that increase the range at which enemies can be visually acquired. All sorts of stuff. I'll take up critical slots in a battle mech. Some add weight too. Keep your eyes open for him and give him a good once over before you buy one, so you know what you're getting into. Now, putting powerful weapons and equipment on your mechs is fine and all, but remember the trade-off is always armor. You know how they say the best defense is a strong offense? They aren't on the battlefield. Don't skip on the armor, boss, or all that expensive equipment will get reduced to junk with the enemy's first salvo. You'll keep that in mind. I heard that some manufacturers have developed better versions of some weapons. True that. Different manufacturers tweak their weapons to deliver more damage, have higher accuracy, destabilize the enemy, a bunch of stuff. The trick is finding them. They're rare out here in the periphery, so when I see one in a store or salvage pile, I always mark it with a plus for you, so you can identify it easily. That's quite helpful of you, Yang. Let me ask you about something else. How do I repair mech damage after a battle? Whenever you return from a mission, stop by the Mech Bay here to tell me which mechs you want to have repaired. I'm not gonna assume anything. You run this outfit, so you tell me what to spend time and money on. Okay, that's not completely true. If I see armor missing from a battle mech, I'm gonna repair it automatically. Okay, awesome. It's standard operating procedure, and we have so much scrap armor lying around, you should consider armor repairs to be free. Okay, that's cool. Now if you tell me to repair a mech containing destroyed equipment, the tax will strip that off automatically too. I'll list the equipment they strip, but you're gonna want to replace it with something. What if I want to change a mech's loadout? Can I refit it with new weapons and equipment? Ooh, now you're talking, boss. You bet you can refit a mech. You can repair it at the same time too. Just select a battle mech and order the refit. That'll bring it to the mech lab. What can I do in the mech lab? The mech lab is where you let me know what sorts of modifications you want to make to a stable of battle mechs. I can install new weapons and equipment, add or remove armor location by location, pretty much anything you want. All it takes is time and money. We've got plenty of both, right? Right? Are there limits on how I can refit a mech? Its hardware retroburn, of course there are limits. Your biggest constraints are the chassis weight and its hard points. I can't make a mech as heavy as I want? Negative. A mech's chassis can support only so much tonnage in weapons, armor, and equipment. So you need to keep its overall weight in mind when designing a battle mech's loadout. If your design is over a chassis weight rating, you can accept the work order. Now there are ways of making things fit, of course. Trade-offs can be made, but you've gotta be careful. You have the ability to remove armor from individual locations in order to squeeze more or bigger weapons on. But less armor is less armor. You don't want to wind up with something that'll blow over in a strong breeze. Trust me on that. I've seen it happen often enough to know. What's a hard point again? It's a location where you add in weapons. Each location in a battle mech contains one or more weapon mounts called hard points. Hard points are only designed for one specific weapon type: ballistic, energy, missile, and support. However, most mechs contain locations with more than one hard point, so you have some flexibility in what you mount there. Let's go back for a minute. There's something else I need to ask. Yeah, sure, be my guest. How do I know what a mech is good at in the first place? Interesting. Great question. There are a lot of different battle mechs out there, and it's hard to know what they were built to do best just by looking at them. I mean, I can, of course, but I'm me. You, on the other hand, are gonna need some help. Thankfully, I'm a helpful guy. If you check your technical readouts in the mech lab, you'll find that I've included some thoughts about each mech's off-the-rack purpose, or stock role. They're only opinions, mind you, but you might find them useful. Okay? I've also provided access to an itemized list of the equipment that a mech normally carries when you buy it as stock. Think of it as a mech's basic recipe. What happens after I order a refit? Once you confirm your work order, it'll be placed in a queue with other repairs and refits on your timeline. Remember, a mech will be unavailable for combat until its work order is complete, so plan your refits carefully. I suggest queuing them up before we head to the next system to use our travel time efficiently. If you want to change a mech's placement in the work queue, select Manage Tasks under the timeline to reprioritize or cancel work orders, so we can do that. Awesome. Okay, so if you want to change your mech's orders, select Manage Tasks, okay. Gotcha. How long do repairs and refits normally take? Depends, right? Depends on the Mech Bay conditions you're working in. A good Mech Bay with advanced scaffolding and equipment is faster than one you'll find on a standard Leopard. That's not good. I display our Mech Bay's efficiency and Mech Tech points on your travel display under the finances and crew morale readouts. The higher the rating, the faster the repairs. Let me ask you about something else. Sure thing, boss. Be my guest. You seem to know your way around a battlefield, Yang. Any advice? Sure, the better you lead in combat, the less work I have to do when it's over. Let's talk about heat. Yeah, let's talk about it. I can't emphasize this enough. Watch your heat. Your mech warriors are sitting on walking fusion reactors out there. Using jump jets and firing weapons generates heat. Sometimes lots of it. If one of your mechs gets too hot, you could do damage to its internal structure, or worse, shut down the engine in the middle of combat, leaving it a sitting duck. How can I affect heat in combat? Each weapon system in a battle mech can be toggled on. Okay, we know that already. Most mech warriors keep their heat low by toggling. Oh, we know that already. But sometimes you'll have a solid chance to hit with everything in your arsenal. That's when you've got to experiment by toggling a few off to make sure you stay below the red line. How can I make a mech more heat efficient? Heat sinks. Note your mech's heat rating in the mech lab and install more heat sinks on it if you find that it runs hot in combat. Heat sinks vent plasma from the mech's engine and do a lot to dissipate the buildup from jump jets and weapon fire. Heat sinks are your friend. Let's go back for a minute. There's something else I need to ask. Let's talk about mech stability. Yes, ability is a smart thing for a commander to understand, boss. Getting pummeled by weapon of fire is a good way for a mech to become destabilized. Walking over rough terrain doesn't help much either. Destabilized mechs can sprint in combat, and they're vulnerable to falling if hit hard enough while in that state. Tell me about how to make my battle mechs less vulnerable to weapon fire. Armor. There's a few ways I can think of: evasion, cover, and bracing. Let's hear about evasion. The short form version is this: the farther a unit goes, the more evasive it becomes. Shooting a moving target is hard, and shooting a faster target is harder. When you order a mech to move in combat, note the number of angled chevrons your command software assigns it. The more chevrons that are displayed, the harder it will be to hit. Same for the enemy. Sensor locking an enemy removes 2 of its evasion chevrons and makes it easier to hit. Same goes for your units, so be careful. Cover? Battle mechs are kind of big, aren't they? Yep, they're big and scary and dangerous, and they're harder to hit standing in forests and other terrain features. Standing behind buildings or hills is good too. If the enemy can see you, they're gonna have a hard time hitting you. It's all about line of sight. Think about it. Think about it all the time. Your enemy is, I guarantee it. If they can see you, a little red eyeball will appear above them in your command software. Okay, we got that from the forums. I got that from the forums. I've been doing some sifting around. Mastiff taught me to brace my mech, but that doesn't make it harder to hit. No, bracing your mech won't make it harder to hit, but it should buffer some of the damage you'll take by half or so. So think about it, eh? Let me ask you about something else. Okay, so that's enough for now. Okay, so we've still got several sections here. Only 2. I want an assessment on the Leopard. How much trouble are we in? Dunno. We're doing okay for the moment, but give it a few months, maybe a year. You know how it goes. Eventually, everything falls apart. Maybe our drive system will give out. Maybe some debris will perforate the hull. Who knows? But on that day, we're gonna need to be able to cover our repair costs. And if you can't, well, that'll be that. Okay, so this is the last section. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How'd you wind up with this crew? That's a long story, boss. Shortest version I can give you. I signed on after I served my term in the Third Succession War, fighting for the Capellan Confederation. If you want to know more, you can ask whatever you want. Otherwise, let's get back to talking shop. So I just discovered that highlighted ones can be hovered over, and there you go. The Third Succession War began in 2866 when Coordinator Miyogi Kurita responded aggressively to rumors of the Draconis Combine's weakness. But the fighting spread to the entire inner sphere. Because the successor state's military capabilities had been dramatically reduced in the previous 2 succession wars, this conflict proceeded at a slower pace and with less intensity than the earlier wars. Treaties signed in 3020 and 3022 limited the fighting, and by 3025, the Third Succession War has effectively ended. The Capellan Confederation is one of the 5 successor states of the Star League, located rimward of Terra. Ruled by House Liao, the Confederation is the smallest and newest of the successor states and often the loser in conflicts against the other powers of the Inner Sphere. It is an authoritarian police state with philosophical origins in a text known as the Corvin Doctrine, which argues for total subservience of the individual to the state. Citizens of the Confederation must earn their position and the benefits of citizenship through service to their community. The current ruler of the Confederation is Chancellor Maximilian Liao, a shrewd planner and master manipulator. Okay, where are you from originally? Bryant, in the Confederation. You may have heard of our claim to the fame, the Crowley Lizard Cow. No? Well, trust me, they're delicious. edible reptile indigenous to the planet Brian. The meat of the Crowley lizard cow is considered a delicacy in his... okay. Anyways, the story goes, Brian was a really nice place once. A tourist spot, big with hikers and fishing enthusiasts. Pale blue skies, emerald green seas, and a booming agricultural business. You know, the works. I never knew it that way though. Stefan Amaris got to it a couple of centuries before I was born. And well, that was that. Okay, so this was the guy who assassinated, I think, the first regent. It started the conflict that caused Kerensky to lead his troops against Terra, and it ended in a 13-year campaign, just so they could punch through to Earth, if memory serves. He born 2717, died 2779. As president of the Rimworld's Republic, Stefan Amaris expanded the Republican army and placed Republican agents in key positions throughout the Star League. He fostered a closer relationship with Richard Cameron while the First Lord was in his minority. Yeah, this was the kid whom he assassinated. When Cameron came of age, Amaris guided him towards policies that would move Alexander Krenzy's Star League Defense Force away from Terra and place Republican forces there instead. With these preparations in place, Stefan Amaris murdered Richard Cameron on December 27, and declared himself First Lord, beginning the Amaris Civil War. Kerensky raised the Rimworld's Republic and returned to Terra to defeat Amaris' forces and capture him. Stefan Amaris was executed by firing squad in 2779. His remains were donated to the medical school of the University of New Samarkand. As the story goes, Brian used to have these enormous orbital mirrors, storm inhibitors they call them. The Star League put them in place. When Amaris took the system in his civil war, he had his troops use them for target practice. Without those mirrors, Brian reverted to its natural state, a miserable little ball of wind-blown dirt, actively hostile to human life. Oh, what a waste. From 2570 to 2780, the Star League was an interstellar council formed from the Terran hegemony, the 5 great houses of the inner sphere, and the territorial states of the periphery. The stability and prosperity of the Star League led to the flourishing of civilization and technology. The Star League ended in civil war when the leader of the Rimworld's Republic, Stefan Amaris, murdered the First Lord in a bid to usurp his position. By the time I came along, the only places where people could live in relative safety were the planet's poles. Of course, you can fit a planet's entire population into a handful of cities at its poles. There isn't enough space no matter how far down you dig or how tall you build. A lot of people, mostly the poor, died in the early days. There's still a lot of overcrowding in Brian's cities even now. That's my childhood home in a nutshell. Way too many people jammed into a tiny claustrophobic space with nowhere to go but off-planet. I cleared out there as fast as I could and never looked back. Gotta admit though, I do miss the taste of lizard chow. Tell me about your time in the military. Who'd you serve with? The 2nd St. Ives Lancers, 1st Battalion, under Major Ling. We saw more action than most. The arm is a souvenir of my time in the service. I lost the original back in 3010 on St. Lawrence. A well-connected and well-financed regiment, the Lancers operated along the Capellian Confederation's Rimward Quarter, fending off pirates and conducting raids into the Free Worlds League. In 3025, its 3 battalions are allocated to the defense of St. Ives, Maladier, and St. Lawrence. St. Lawrence is an important agricultural center in the Capellian Confederation. In 3010, a notable battle took place between the 2nd St. Ives Lancers and 2 regiments from the elite Seti Hussars of the Federated Suns. Much of the planet's vital wheat crop was destroyed. Federated Suns is what? That's under the House Davion, I think? Not too sure. You know, when we first arrived at St. Lawrence, I love the place. It's an agricultural world, sort of a breadbasket for the neighboring systems. Green fields, rolling hills, you get the picture. We just walked out of hell in Kittery. The Fed rats drove us out in 05 with our tails between our legs. So it looked like paradise to us. I remember kicking back in the Mech Bay, my feet propped up on an engine block, sitting on a snifter of ambergris vermouth. not a bad way to spend a sunny afternoon. Previously under Campellian control in 3005, this inhospitable jungle world was conquered by the Federated Suns. A resistance movement kept the world a war zone for many years. In the 3020s, House Liao returned and waged war for a more permanent liberation. So far, it has succeeded only in creating lasting enmity between the defending First Kittery borders and the invading forces of the St. Ives Armored Cavalry. A person living in or whose national origins is the Federated Suns, considered derogatory. Eh? Ambergris vermouth is red and usually found in tiny bottles in pork shops. Getting a larger bottle takes connections. Getting a crate of it, well. Anyway, turn out the Federated Suns weren't done with us yet. We were barely a month into our deployment when they sent the SETI Hussars to burn us out. I'm sure that there were sound strategic reasons for House Davion to want St. Louis, but it sure felt personal to me. So, yep, I was right. It is House Davion. The Federated Suns is one of the 5 successor states of the Star League, located rimward and spinward of Terra. Ruled by House Davion, the Federation is the most powerful of the 5, and the people of the Federation pride themselves on their self-proclaimed role as defenders of justice and liberty. America! The Federation is quite capable of ruthless, decisive action though, and its idealism readily gives way to pragmatism when called for. The current ruler of the Federation, Prince Hans Davion, is an experienced and unconventional military commander. The Federation's alliance with the Lyran Commonwealth effectively ended the Third Succession War. But someone in the Battletech forums that he's American and that he's just like they're just like House Marek, always quarreling among themselves. I don't know. I've never been to the States, so I don't know if that's true. SETI Hussars, created by the Federated Suns in an effort to replicate a light horse-style regiment of the Star League era. The combination of mechs and mounted infantry was ideal for conducting swift raids. The Hussars also encouraged personnel to dine together regardless of rank or branch of service, prompting a high re-enlistment rate. House Davion. By Freedom's Sword. From their capital world of New Avalon, the Davion family led the Federated Suns to become one of the most largest and most militarily powerful states in the Inner Sphere. The Federated Suns' motto, by Freedom's Sword, illustrates their self-image as a nation, the champion of freedom, democracy, and human rights, although the reality is not so clear-cut. In addition to being a military power, the Federated Suns is home to the New Avalon Institute of Science, the premier research and development center of the 31st century. Long story short, one of their scouts managed to slip through our perimeter and hit my Mech Bay. I was tinkering around in a Centurion's custom-made rumble seat at the time. Being surrounded by all that armor is the only reason I made it out alive. Still, I didn't make it out unscathed. I lost 2 of my favorite assistants and my own right arm, and I've got this ugly thing grafted onto me as a reminder. Rumble seat is what? An optional secondary passenger seat that can be built into the controlled area of a battle mech. Rumble seats are positioned away from all control systems and injection equipment. Those who ride in them have no control over the mech itself, and are utterly at the mercy of the mech warrior in the cockpit. And yet, here I am, doing mercenary work for a living. Some people never learn, huh? Why do you leave the Capellian Confederation? After my tour of duty was up, you mean? I don't know, it was just time for a change. Besides, the place wasn't for me anymore. In a way, it never really was. I learned a lot from my time in the service. Got a first-hand view of the elitist that saturates Capellian culture, how it rewards highborn idiots at the common people's expense. Speaking as a thoroughly common man, that didn't sit right with me. When my tour was over, I walked away and never looked back. Okay, so there are 3 choices, I think. Once we click on this, I don't think we'll be able to go back here. Okay, let's not mention that. Yeah, let's choose this one. For what it's worth, I'm glad that you walked away. You've brought my mech back from the brink more than once. Way more than once if memory serves. Still, I appreciate the kind words, and for what it's worth, I'm happy to be here with this crew. Going career military would have been an enormous mistake. Okay, let's pick this one. Yeah, let's. This has been a fun trip down memory lane, but I'm sure that we've both got more important things to worry about. Okay, so this ends it. I've got to get back to it. Talk to you later, Yang. Okay, so this will end part 11 of our Let's Play Battletech.
Anytime.
So I know this is kind of boring talking to NPCs, but I'd like to give my viewers a complete view of what we're going through. So yeah, we're going to talk to Sumir next in part 12. So if you like this video, guys, please like and or subscribe. This has been Retroburn. Stay cool, stay frosty.